If you told me 3 minutes into the game that the Blue Jackets were going to come away with a point, I would have laughed in your face. Somehow they did that. I still don't think it's a good thing, but we'll talk about it on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster. It's my co-host, Hayden Heilshorn. We're here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, mostly that last one today, about your favorite team and ours, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on every podcast platform, YouTube and SiriusXM. If you want to become an everydayer, I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. That was a bad game. So full behind the curtain disclosure is I recorded an entire episode about this game by myself, and then it was terrible because the game was terrible. So I decided to wait for Hayden, and then we can just rant at each other instead of me yelling into the microphone for 23 minutes, which I believe was what I did last night. This was embarrassing. And I think people are looking at this as, well, they battled back and it's a good thing. And they showed resilience and they somehow got a point out of it. And I don't know if they will have learned anything from this game, because what I think they did learn was that they can be garbage in the first period and get outshot 25-4 or whatever it was and be down 3-2 after allowing 3 goals on your first 11 shots. But if they have a good second period to tie the game, then they can just kind of stop trying in the third period. And then lose in overtime because of inexcusable, lazy defensive plays from the two big guys that we brought in the offseason. Ivan Provorov should sit the next game for that turnover. If we're still doing the same accountability that everyone else has been doing, Ivan Provorov should be sitting for a game. Damon Severson apparently doesn't know how to play 2-on-1s, despite the fact that he's been playing in this league for like a decade. Spencer Martin is the only person on this team that I'm not mad at, I think is... Let's start there. Let's start with the good from this game. Spencer Martin was friggin' incredible in this game. And this might be a hot take. The Blue Jackets should start him against Dallas on Thursday. We're not going to talk about Dallas today. We'll talk about that tomorrow for a full game preview, because I think probably most of today is going to be taken up by yelling about how stupid and terrible this team is. But after looking like the worst goalie in the league that he was last season in his first 2 outings with the Blue Jackets, in his last 3 games, he has made 35 of 36, 32 of 34, and 35 of 37 saves, which I did the math. He's allowed 5 goals on his last 107 shots for this team. He should have a better record than 1 and 2 for that kind of work. I'm going to let Hayden talk now because I've been yelling for 4 minutes. Spencer Martin, best player on the ice last night? Yes or no?
I mean, he kept the Blue Jackets in the game, right? He gave the Blue Jackets a chance to win that game. They were in a 4-3 lead after pulling Elvis in the first period. And so, they had a chance to win. They had the lead with 1 minute and 10 seconds left to go, Jay. And they had a chance to get 2 points on the road against the defending Eastern Conference champions. And while, they still got outshot tremendously overall, the entire game was bad. I think the Jackets turned it on there in the third period. But again, there were still some power play opportunities that they didn't cash in on throughout the game. And it's just a lot of the same stuff. And frankly, the Blue Jackets are kind of lucky to be back in that game too. A lot of good bounces their way.
Bobrovsky fell asleep in the first period.
Yeah.
He faced 1 shot at the beginning of the game, and then the Panthers had the next 21 shots on goal. And then the Blue Jackets scored on the next shot, I believe. So, if you don't face a shot for 18 minutes or 16 minutes or whatever it was, you're gonna fall asleep. And, the same thing kind of happened with the Boone Jenner goal was if you don't face any shots for 15 minutes, of course you're going to allow 2 goals on your next 5 shots or whatever, because this team just pulling Elvis didn't even help. Like, they got back in the game somehow, but I would argue that was solely on Bobrovsky not having a very good night, as opposed to the Blue Jackets doing literally anything good, because they were bad. This was a bad game, and I'm mad about how bad it was.
Yeah, if they would have gotten 2 points in this game, that would have been just
It would have been the
insane.
luckiest 2 points this team has ever gotten.
Yeah, it would have been crazy. Now, what's funny is, like, a couple nights ago, or Saturday night, when they played the Capitals, right? They lost that game 2-1, got no points. In my opinion, I felt like they were the better team in that game. Got no points. Last night, they were the way worse team and still walked out of there with a point. So I don't know how hockey works sometimes, to be honest. But I will say, back to your original question, Spencer Martin absolutely is the only one that can, skate off the ice and be like, I played a good game, because everything else was not that great. You're absolutely right. I mean, even the goal scorers, like, I had said I'd like to see some of the veterans score, and Boone Jenner and Alexander Texier got some big goals. So I was happy for those guys. But, the Marchenko and Corrali goal, like, those kind of felt – I guess the Marchenko goal isn't really an accident when that line seems to be clicking. Like, they seem to be putting pressure on goalies, which is a good thing, and they get in the puck in important zones, important areas of the ice where they can score, so credit them. But, yeah, I mean, they were lucky to be in that game, and I just watched it again. The Provorov turnover is so bad.
Like,
yeah, it's bad. And it's just like Spencer Martin, was he statistically one of the worst goalies in the league last year? No doubt. I think there is something to be said about he came to this team, Columbus, who had a complete reworking of their defense. He used that defense in front of him, which played very well the first 8-9 games of the season. It felt like the defense was on. Lately, the defense has kind of been pretty bad and starting to get back to its old ways, it feels like. I don't know what needs to be. Go ahead.
Sorry, just one point on the defense. If Eric Branson is your best player, which statistically speaking he was last night, it makes me want to walk into the ocean and never come back. Like, it's right there. Like, I just got to go down 17. The ocean's right there. I can leave. Like, that's how this game made me feel. Is that? And then looking at the game scores last night, Eric Branson, I believe, had the best game score, which is kind of calculated on a bunch of different things: shot attempts, possession numbers, actual points, blocked shots, giveaways, takeaways, things like that. Eric Branson, statistically speaking, was the best player on the ice last night.
He did look really good. I will say that he's looking good. Like, he's
I
actually.
agree. The credit to Eric Branson, he did. I thought he looked good as well, and he has looked good this season, kind of as a whole. In no way, shape, or form should he be the best defenseman on any given night, unless he's the only defenseman on any given night. Like, what are we doing here? Werenski and Severson were terrible. They fell apart. For some God only knows reason, they scratched David Jiricek to put Andrew Peeke back in, who did exactly what Andrew Peeke does, blocked a ton of shots, and was basically invisible for most of the game. Provorov with the turnover, Severson with the overtime, whatever that was. Like, and I think the frustrating thing for me is, if this was a one-off game, I would be way less frustrated by it, but it feels like this team keeps coming up with new and creative ways to lose games. They forgot how to score in the Washington game. They lost a lead in the Ducks game. They forgot how to kill penalties in the Montreal game. Like, just new and exciting ways for this team to screw up. And now the team's 4-8. They're look from the outside looking in on the playoffs. Washington's ahead of them. I think Pittsburgh is the only team in the East that's below them in points, which I do enjoy. I will say that. I do enjoy that Pittsburgh is suffering right now. But this doesn't look like a team that's going to go to the playoffs. They don't look like a team that wants to go to the playoffs, as based on the effort that we saw on Monday night.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like now they have, 6 losses in the last 7 games. It's starting to feel like for them, they are accepting of their fate.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is where we're at in the season as fans. Like, we're like,
This might as well happen, yeah.
this is starting to look bad again. That stinks. It is too early in the season to be doing that, though. Like, that's the thing. That's what's frustrating is it's like, yeah, if this was a one-off game, we wouldn't be mad. But if it was a one-off game, if the Blue Jackets were in a playoff spot, we would obviously be fine. But it's like the team played bad there at the end of October, early November. Let's see them start to play better. And now they had one good game, I think, against Washington over the weekend. Again, I felt like that 2-1 loss, it was a solid team effort. You just didn't get the goals. Monday night, they got the goals. And they didn't have the
And then
rest
everything
of
else stopped working. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
So it's like
that's something I kind of want to touch on in the next point. So I think we'll take a quick break. And then when we get back, I will continue being annoyed, but probably in a slightly more constructive way. So in a minute, we're going to talk about whether the Blue Jackets have put in a consistent 60-minute effort at any point this season for any game. That's coming up next on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, though, I have to tell you guys about eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, from things like superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. They have 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, and you're going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you're going to get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are going to burn rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home a win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to US customers. Also going to tell you guys about Sleeper, because a new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Johnny Gaudreau could score 50 goals. The Blue Jackets could win the Stanley Cup. Neither of those things are going to happen, but they could. And you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. They're our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy contests. All you have to do is predict the outcome of 8 player stats, and you will win 100 times your money on Sleeper. The app is super easy to use. I like it a lot. I like it way more than any other daily fantasy sport that I have kind of poked around on. You can also do NFL, NBA, MLB, CFB on Sleeper, and they've got a really cool group chat functionality so you can connect with other fans. Just pick players like McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, McKinnon, and whether they're going to record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. And you can win 100 times your money. Start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you will get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That is code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, Hayden. This is kind of a thought that I've been having since last night, because I feel like the Blue Jackets have good periods of hockey. I don't know that I've seen a game yet where they have been the best team for the full 60 minutes. And I'm drawing a blank. Like, they somehow got out of Tampa with a win. They somehow got out of Calgary with a win. Like, they were the best team for like 2 periods of the Caps game, and then in 1 period they weren't. And so I'm just wondering if maybe you've seen something different. Have the Blue Jackets been the better team for a full 60 minutes at any point in this season so far?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in that Flames game, definitely. I thought when the Blue Jackets, that was their 4th game of the season, their 4th straight home game. They won that one 3-1, and the Flames had played like 3 straight road games to start the year. So like they were a little tired in that one. But when they played that one, I did feel like, you know, this is a full team effort. The Blue Jackets actually looked really good. They looked put together. They created chances that they just, again, they only scored 3 goals that game. And that is, in my mind, still one of like the best games they've played all year. So it's like, that's not a good sign already. Back to last night's, though, real quick, just thinking about how that game went down. Last night, as in Monday night, of course. I know it's Wednesday now that we're listening to this, but
Time doesn't make sense anymore. It's
no,
fine.
it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. But I will say, like, that was a heated game that they played on Monday night. Like, right, like there was a lot of emotion in that one. There was fights for no reason. I do still love that Dmitry Vronkov is skating around. The only language he speaks is fists right now because, like, unless he's speaking Russian to Kirill Marchenko, he's not speaking any English, so he's just speaking with his fists. And he seems to love his teammates, or at least love the opportunity to defend his teammates, which I think is a good thing for a rookie to establish himself in that way and still be scoring points. But the Blue Jackets have been playing in these emotional games and have, like, lost themselves and forgotten, like, they've forgotten how to close out a game, how to play a full 60 minutes, like we've said here in this segment. But more importantly, Jay, they've also learned, like, they can't just, throw in the towel the last 2 minutes of a game. You need to be tighter on defense. You need to make smarter, zone exits. Like, things need to be cleaner for Columbus right now. And I feel like even though they haven't played a full 60 minutes, because I think even if you went back to that Calgary game that they won 3-1, you could still find a time where they just got dominated, I'm sure. They have like some bright moments that I don't think Brad Larson teams had in years past. So I'm still encouraged. I'm still glad that they got a point Monday night because, I mean, at this point, I'm not even looking at Metropolitan standings. It's November 7th when we're recording this. I'm already clicking the wild card button right now. And the Blue Jackets right now sit 2 points out of a wild card behind the Islanders, who hold the 8th spot, and they have 2 games in hand. So some work to be done, Jackets. Some work to be done.
This team is not ready to contend. They are ready to be competitive, and I think that might be what was so annoying about this game. Sergei Bobrovsky was out of the net for 3 minutes of this game, and watching them try to score in an empty net was genuinely comical. And I think that was the frustrating thing was, this game was winnable. They had that awful first period. The game was somehow winnable anyway, and then they were 54 seconds away from walking out of there with 2 points in regulation, which if you told me that 6 minutes in, I would have laughed in your face. But I guess my next question, which we'll talk about in a second, is what happens now? What does this team do to get back into the wins? Because obviously they broke a winning streak against Tampa and then played well against the Capitals. And now Dallas is coming to town. And we'll talk a little bit specifically about Dallas in tomorrow's episode. But when we get back, I want to ask you kind of what needs to change with this team for them to get back to the team that we kind of saw at the start of the season that has all of this potential. So we'll do that in a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Before we do that, I've got to tell you guys about FanDuel. I hope you didn't put any money on the Blue Jackets winning the game last night, but if you did, then you should have done it at FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. $150 if your team wins. Literally, all you have to do is go and look at the heavy favorite in the NFL, put $5 on them. If they win, you get $150 in bonus bets. You can use those bonus bets on literally anything else on the website. Spreads, player props, over-unders, go to a different sport, put money on the Blue Jackets, losing every single game from now until the heat death of the universe. I don't know if FanDuel has specific odds for that, but they might. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL, and also us, the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, Hayden, I asked you before the break, what does this team do now? Like, what needs to happen for this team to win in Dallas tomorrow night?
Man, we say this every single time, but they gotta score goals. That's a given. That has to happen. Obviously, you win games by scoring goals. That's a stupid point by me. they got to play better defense. The defense has to be sharper. I mean, it's fallen apart. Provorov looks lost now, and I think Provorov is like, in a lot of ways, goalies need confidence. I think Provorov as a defenseman needs his confidence back somehow because he looks lost out there. Looks like he's making mistakes, and that's frustrating. Zach Werenski doesn't look like the same player right now either, and I feel like Damon Severson's kind of being hurt by that because he's supposed to be playing with Zach Werenski, who's one of the top 5 highest paid defensemen in the league, and he's making mistakes too. So, I mean, maybe part of this is just still early season kind of woes. That could be a thing, but that would be taking the easy way out by explaining that. I think the defense is playing bad. I don't know. I think the fact that Chinnikov has been in the lineup, I think, has helped the team a lot. He seems to be playing with the spark in the first 2 games he's been back, so I'd like to see that going. I don't know, just play better defense. Don't look like the Brad Larson Blue Jackets anymore. Like, this is
that's what they looked like last night. That's
right.
True. They looked like the Brad Larson coached Blue Jackets. I fully agree about the defense. I think Ivan Provorov has been excellent offensively and is lacking something defensively. So I wonder if there's something that, like, I know that Werenski and Severson have been excellent together. If Provorov plays in Dallas, which I assume he will, because I don't think he'll get healthy scratched for that turnover, even though he probably should. Do you put Provorov and Severson back together? Do you put Jiricek back in the lineup? Take Andrew Peeke out? I wonder if that was partially why Provorov had such a rough night, because Andrew Peeke doesn't know how to play defense. If he's not blocking shots, that might be mean. If you're related to Andrew Peeke and you're listening to this episode, I'm very sorry, but he had a rough night. I think you can understand that. I think you need to do something. I don't think that third pairing needs to be changed, but kind of we've talked about this before. Of if your best defense pairing is the third defense pairing, like you've got to mix things up. In the same vein, I thought the Blue Jackets' best line last night was that fourth line of Kuraly, Danforth, and Olivier, which that's probably the first time I've ever said that the Olivier line was the best line, but it was. They were the only line that didn't get absolutely dominated in terms of possession. So you've got to mix things up. Patrick Laine's not back. He's probably not coming back for at least a week, maybe longer. You can't keep putting placeholders on that line with Fantilli and hoping that everything is okay. You need to figure out an option for that. But yeah, I completely agree. The defense needs changing up, which is annoying because I feel like literally 2 episodes ago, we were talking about how fun it is that the Blue Jackets have had the same 6 defensemen in the same configuration for the past 8 games or whatever. So mix it up. Something's not working. Maybe they just had a bad game. But if I'm Pascal Vincent, I'm looking at the line combinations I've been using. The Roslovic-Gaudreau Jenner line isn't working. I think Fantilli has gone a little bit cold because he's got a rotating door of wingers, which again, I get it, Laine's out, but he needs consistency. He's 19 years old. The Sillinger line I thought was fine, I guess. It wasn't terrible, which I think was probably the best you could ask out of that game, but put all of your players on post-it notes and then move them around on the locker room whiteboard until you find a different combination. Because right now, what's happening isn't working, and that's kind of all I have to say about that.
It'd be pretty hilarious if Johnny Gaudreau started on the third or fourth line,
right?
I mean,
and that's not what I'm saying here, but
right.
Something's up with Johnny Gaudreau, and the line mates he has right now aren't working. There was a line in preseason, and I don't remember if it was Jenner, Gaudreau, Texier, maybe, but that line looked incredible. Try that. Reunite the Gaudreau, Jenner, Marchenko line that they finished last season with that was really good. But Jack Roslovic has to come off that line because the hot streak's over. He's back to the Jack Roslovic that we all know that he is, a third-line winger, and I think he's dragging that line down, and no one on that line was particularly good, I don't think. But Roslovic, to me, has really kind of been struggling the past couple of games. So, mix it up. I don't care what you do, just don't put the same lineup on the ice that you put on the ice against Florida.
Right.
Do
And
literally anything else. Pascal.
it seems like right now the one thing the Blue Jackets are struggling with is having guys play elite hockey night in and night out. You
Consistency is a
know?
big problem.
Like and that's a difference between a good NHL team and a bad NHL team. Is the good NHL teams have elite talent that plays elite hockey every single night. It's one thing to just in a practice or a preseason game or even in one regular season game look like you have all the offensive skill in the world and put up 6-7 goals on the scoreboard. But can you do that in the next night against the Toronto Maple Leafs? Like that's what's tough, right?
Right. And like in
And
fairness, the Blue Jackets are a very young team. We're gonna get growing pains like this. And so I think this entire episode has been me overreacting. I'm not gonna lie. And so I am telling myself more than anyone else, calm down. This team will even out. I'm gonna retweet it onto the show Twitter, but Micah McCurdy, who's one of my absolute favorite hockey statisticians, tweeted out what the score lines look like and like how the goals look for each team. And the Blue Jackets are basically on a flat line at the minute, which is great because yesterday it looked like the start of a roller coaster where you have that like 100-foot straight drop. Not yesterday, excuse me, last season. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. It's not even late here. That's not that I have no excuse. It's fine. I'll retweet it onto the show Twitter. The Blue Jackets this season are night and day from the Blue Jackets last season. So like it's not the end of the world. They have bad games. I just feel like they've had a handful of bad games in a row that have been bad in different ways. And that's kind of concerning me because if the team was bad the same way every single night, I'd be like, okay, well, there's something to work on. But it feels like every time they fix something, they find another problem. You know, it's every time you plug a leak in a boat, another one starts. And I
I
have
just
faith in Pascal Vincent to figure it out, but we're running out of time. You've got 2 weeks until American Thanksgiving, if my math is right. If you're not in the playoffs then, you're probably not going to be in the playoffs in April.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And honestly, Jay, this is the biggest week for them because in the next 7 days they play 4 games. They play 4 games. So, you know, like, are they going to have 8 points or are they going to have 0 more points in the standings? Like, it could be a huge swing. Probably somewhere in between 2 and 3 points is what they'll end up having in the next 4. If I had to give an honest prediction right now, the team is struggling to play like energetic, high level hockey night in, night out. They can do it on some nights, but they can't do it every single night. I still feel like they're playing mildly disciplined out there, which is weird to say, but you're right. They look tired. They look like they just don't want to be out there at other times. Like it's weird. And I don't blame Vincent. Like he's doing the best he can from what I see, but yeah, they play the Stars, Detroit, New York, Pittsburgh, all in the next 6 days.
That's 3 winnable games, and the Stars, who are a legitimately good team.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I'd say, in the NHL, it's 4 winnable games. Like that's the way they have to look at this. The Stars have lost 2 in a row. The Red Wings have cooled off. Rangers have heated up, so that's going to be tough because then you go to New York too.
The Rangers have lost Shesterkin though, which is a bit, and Adam Fox is injured as well, I believe. So that's a big. I might be incorrect on that, but I believe that's their 2 biggest guns are currently out of the lineup. So that feels like a winnable game to me. We're going a little bit long here, so we'll wrap it up. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow to talk a little bit more about Dallas, what the Blue Jackets did last game that sunk them, and what they need to do this time to not lose embarrassingly. Which, frankly, I will take a loss that isn't embarrassing at this point. But I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find Hayden over at HaydenH971 on Twitter. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. You can email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com if you have complaints, criticisms, comments, questions, anything like that. Don't email complaints to me. I don't know why I said that. I don't want you to email complaints to me because that seems mean, frankly. Tomorrow we'll talk about the Dallas game. Thank you once again for making us your first listen every day. If you want to be an everydayer, you can find us on all podcast platforms, on YouTube and on SiriusXM. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.